So let's start with the second half of day 9. Okay, that is lab 19. So in lab 19, we will see that how we can increase reusability by creating a 2-tier architecture. Now, if you watch the current state of the application, it is pretty nice, but look at the duplicate code, when we connect to the database. Wherever we are connecting to the database, right, that code is repeated again and again and again. I mean to say, we always go and, initialize a connection string. We go and then open the connection object. We fire the command object. We fill our data set, or must be execute the command object, and then we close the connection. So this, this code, right, is repeated again and again across project. In other words, if you want to just see that where this code is repeated again and again, for example, if you just go and search for this SQL connection word in your project, you can find that in so many places, this code is duplicated. So you can see like it's duplicated here in the load customer function. It's duplicated here in the BTN preview click. It's duplicated here again in the load customer. Again, if I click here, again in the display customer, it is duplicated. In the BTN delete, it is duplicated. So you can see this code is scattered across the project and creating lots of redundant code. So it would be great, if we can move this data connection code into a separate library altogether and reuse it again and again. So in other words, rather than going and pasting this thing in multiple places, how about taking this code and moving it to a different library altogether and then referencing that library, rather than copy pasting this code again and again. So what it means is that, we have to take this code out and move it to a different layer altogether, or to a different tier altogether. That means we have to now break our project into 2 logical pieces, one which has the user interface, and the other one which has the data connection code, right? So how do we do that? So in order to increase reusability, what we will do is, let's go ahead and add a simple class library project. So you can see that I'm adding a new project here, and this project I'm going to go and add a class library project. So you can see that I have selected the type as class library, and I'm going to give a nice name here. So let's give a name as data access, right? And let's go ahead and create this project. So you can see that I have created a very simple class here called a CLS SQL server, and you can see that I am referencing the system.data.sql client namespace here. Great. Now let's go to the customer data entry screen, and let's start moving the data access code one by one to this central class library over here. Now, if you watch the code very closely, right, if you watch the data access code in our project very closely, there are 2 kinds of code we have. One code, which actually loads the data set, and this data set is then bound to a data grid or read somewhere. Okay. And the other kind of code actually does, DML operations, that is insert, updates, and delete. That means, wherever we are firing the execute non-query, it's nothing but it's doing a DML operation, right? Now what we'll do is, let's start one by one. Let's first move the dataset kind of code into this CLS SQL Server class here. So what I'll do is, I'm going to go and return a data set, from this class here. So for that, the first thing, if you want the data set in your project, you have to import system.data namespace. So I'll say, okay, this function, that is get customers, will actually go and return you what you call a dataset object, which will actually have all the customer records. So what I'll do is, I'll take this search customer code from here, and right from here, from the opening of the connection, and I will control X this, and I will move it here, right, to this get customers function. Great. And definitely I don't want the grid view code over here, so this grid view code can go back again to the behind code of the UI. So I'm going to go and paste this code over here. Great. And from the class library, what I will do is, I will go back and return a data set from here. So in other words, this get customers function, right, I'm going to go and return a data set object from here. So you can see that the obj data set object which has been filled, I'm going to go and return that object. Great. Also, I can see that there is some error here regarding the configuration manager. Let me just go and import the system.configuration namespace. The error has not gone off from here. I can't see the configuration manager. Okay. Must be I need to go and add a reference to the system.configuration namespace. Okay. So let me just go to the solution explorer here, and let me just add a reference in the data access library. So I'm going to go and add a reference to the system.configuration namespace. Right now I think the error should go off. So yeah, so you can see now the error has gone off. That's good. So in other words, we were getting some errors because the system.configuration namespace also has to be added to the class library. Okay, remember that. If you remember, right, the system.configuration namespace is necessary because we are going to read the connection string from the app config file, right, from a centralized location. Great. So now it is time to go and use this library inside our user interface here. So the first thing what you have to do is we have to go and add the what you call the reference to the data access library, and you can see that I have added the reference, and we have to go and import the namespace. So you can see that I have imported the namespace saying using data access. Now the next thing is in the btn search customer click, from where we have deleted the data access code, we need to go and invoke from here the code which is there in our library currently, right? So if you remember, right, our class library name was CLS SQL Server. So let's go ahead and create an object of CLS SQL Server class. So I'm going to say here CLS SQL Server obj SQL is equal to new CLS SQL Server. And if you remember, right, we created a very simple function here called as get customer. So we're going to go and invoke that function. So this function actually returns a data set, and the data set is now bound with the data grid view. Nice. So let's go ahead and execute this application to just see that if things are proper and if things are nice and we don't have any issues. So let me do a control F5 here, and let me go and test my search customer screen. So there it is. So you can see that now it is working perfectly well and it is nice. So that is good. So we were able to move the code to a centralized location. Also, what I've done is I am just showing you in a debug mode how the code is getting invoked from the from the class library. So you can see that I put a debug point there, and you can see that currently the debug point is on the btn search customer. So it goes to the btn search customer, click. After that it goes and creates an object of CLS SQL Server. From there it goes to the get customers function. The get customer function actually opens the connection, it fills the data set. So in other words, now the complete code is now centralized into that CLS SQL Server class, and we don't have to go and write code across the places of data connection. So that's nice, that's good. So in the same way, let's try to figure out what other source code are there which are duplicates. So if you see here, one was this btn search customer click, that's already centralized. Now I've done a very simple find here, so I can see that there are a couple of duplicate code here. At least let's try to use that search customer function which we have created wherever possible. So if I remember, it's very difficult to guess from here. Let's go and start browsing. So this guy is actually okay. So you can see that there is a load customer here also. So must be we can go and also remove this duplicate code here, right? So let's go ahead and import the namespace here, and let's go ahead and delete this complete source code from here. We don't need it anymore. Just we need the the data access, the data set binding with the grid is what we need, and nothing else. So we can just go and remove this one and also this one, right? So let's go ahead here and create the object of CLS SQL Server class. So we're going to go and say CLS SQL Server obj equal to new CLS SQL Server, right? And this CLS SQL Server, again we're going to use the same function here, obj.get customers, right? And and that's it. So you can see that again we have removed some more duplicate code here, and it is nice that whenever we want to load all the customers, we are calling the get customers functions again and again. So you can see that now we have removed duplicate code from two places, right? And that is really improving our code quality also. So let me just go and see that if this thing is working. So also let me check in case if there are other places where I can use that get customers function. I don't see a lot over here, right? Right, this is there, but this is with a where clause. Okay, means our select customer is currently the get customers function, what we have, it returns all the records, but we cannot utilize it here. Why? Because this is with a where clause, right? So now let's see. So let's go ahead and create one more function. Must be because we have one get customers which actually loads all the records. What we can do is we can create one more get customers function here which actually returns the records depending on the customer code or the customer name. Okay, so you can see that I've copy pasted the get customers function here, and I'm going to create a overloaded function of get customer. So one get customers function takes nothing, and the other get customer function actually takes a customer code. So if you go and invoke the get customers without any input parameters, it will go and load all the customers. But if you go and invoke the get customers with the customer code, it will just go and what you call load the record of that customer code, right? So there we are. So what we have to do now here is very simple. We have to just go and we'll just go and copy this command over here, right? Because we need to have the command which actually takes the customer code and not the command without the where clause, right? So you can see that I have copy pasted the SQL which has the where clause, that is where customer name equal to whatever name you pass in the get customers function. So you can see that now I have copy pasted the whole thing there, and let me just go and build this. So in other words, now we have created two functions here. One function get customers returns all the records of the customer table, and the other one returns depending on the name. Great. Now let's again go back to the UI and let's try to get rid of all the code from here, because we're going to go and invoke this code from the CLS SQL Server class, right? So let me just go and select all this code till here, delete it, right? And because we are going to get the data set from the get customers what you call function, so probably we can go and delete this complete code till here. Okay, and this data set will get filled from the get customers function which we have just created. Okay, and the other things will all remain same down below, right? So only thing what we have to do now is let's go ahead, the data set, the data access namespace is already imported, so let's go ahead here and now create the object of CLS SQL Server. So I'm going to go and create object of CLS SQL Server, and I'm going to go and invoke the get customer function which actually takes the customer name. So you can see that I'm saying get customers, and I'm going to pass him the customer code there, right? So this get, and now you can see that how the method is overloaded. You can see that the get customer function one is without parameters and the other one is with parameters. So let's go ahead and invoke the function with parameters, right? So that's good. And remember that the below code will not change, because from here, right, the below code where we are setting the data set object to the variables, those things will remain as it is, right? So only thing what we have done is we have moved this data access code to that centralized CLS SQL Server class. That's what that's what we are trying to do here. Okay, so that's done. Nice. I think we don't need to do any other changes here. Right, now let me see if there are any more select statements, any more select queries which are there in my UI. I don't see it. You can see that there are two select statements I have found, but those statements are in the CLS SQL Server class, so we don't need to worry on that, right? So almost I think we are able to get rid of at least the select duplicate code, right? Now let's go ahead and target the insert, update and delete code, because even they are duplicates, right? So let's go to the CLS SQL Server class here, and let's create a very simple function here called as insert customer. Now this insert customer will return a boolean flag, and this boolean flag will be true if the insert customer function has successfully insert your customer record. Okay, now let's go to the create customer screen, and let's take this code from here and let's move it to our insert customer function. So let's do a control X from here, and let's move this complete code to that insert customer function over here.